So welcome everybody. For people who are joining the America Coaching Supervision Network for first time, this is a monthly meeting. We meet the third Monday of the month at the same time today, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we have been organizing this meeting with Lily Ciro, who cannot be here with us today because she's traveling. She sent her regards. And we have been meeting for 5 years. So our goal with this network is to bring coaches and supervisors in the Americas originally to get together and to support each other and to bring visibility to coaching supervision in the Americas. But Tatiana, as you can see now, this is a really global group. So everybody's welcome. It's a global group, even though originally it was just to focus on the Americas. Now we welcome everyone. We have conferences once a year. And I want to announce that we were thinking about doing it in Hawaii next year. Unfortunately, we don't think we are ready yet to meet in person in that way. But since ICF is organizing a conference in Orlando, what we thought with Lily was for people who are coming to the conference to meet one day earlier and to have one meeting in person for everybody who is going to the ICF Global Conference, just to take that opportunity and join one day early and have a one-day conference in Orlando before we start the conference. So this is what's happening. During the 5 years, we record all of these sessions. We have guest speakers. Tatiana has been here before. So Tatiana, it's great to see you again. And there is an amazing recording from one of your sessions in our website. So in our website, we have more than 50 recordings from different people over the year that are really amazing recordings and webinars. So I want to recommend everybody who have not been in our website yet to have an opportunity to go. And in the YouTube channel, we have more than 50 recordings from all of these webinars that we have once a month. And Tatiana, thanks again for being here. I don't know if this is your second or third time that you're joining us over the years. And Tatiana, that's a neat presentation. I think everybody knows Tatiana. Everybody who has been trained as a supervisor has studied with her book. Doesn't matter if in her old program at Oxford Brookes, where I have the opportunity to receive the training, and also at CSA, where I also have the opportunity to receive the training. And in my own training, I have trained more than 250 supervisors in the last 10 years or 8 years. We always use her book. You all know this is a classic. We all benefit from Tatiana. So Tatiana, thank you for putting this book together. I know how much work it is to put together this book. And today she's going to talk about other book that I also recommend to people and talk about is Developmental Psychology. Don't be upset that I don't have the new edition. This is the old edition. So there is a new edition that just came up. She's going to talk about the new edition, but I do believe that all supervisors also need to read developmental coaching, because I think give us a good foundation to understand that clients come at different stages, and understanding this model is really helpful to coach and to supervise particularly. So today, Tatiana, who is one of the pioneers of coaching supervision in the world, it's great. I don't know, I think you changed your role at Oxford Brookes, but she was, what is your new role? Do you have any change? Or the title is the same?
Just professor.
Professor. Okay. So Tatiana, what do you want people to know about you? We have 50 minutes for the presentation. What else would you like people to know about you? I'm going to highlight you and I'm going to make you co-host. So I don't know if you want to share some slides. So the question is, what would you like people to know about you?
Right, I'm going to share the slides, if it's all right, okay,
Yes.
because I did prepare something. Or you asking me or the group? I didn't get it.
Anything you want to share about you that I didn't say?
Oh, about me. Oh, no, it's just me, right? And just the only thing to remind people who already heard me, what I'm going to talk today is just about the second edition. Damien shown you the second edition of the Supervision book, but the year after, actually this year, what came out is the second edition of my developmental coaching book. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And that's what I'm kind of prepared to discuss with you today. Maybe if you read the first edition, it will be mainly kind of the theory in a nutshell and the differences that will be in the second edition. And then we will make something very practical today as well, because I want to tell you more about the notion of developmental supervision that I'm now kind of advocating and started practicing and still have some developed already some groups that are going to deal with that. I can tell you about that a little bit more at the end.
Great.
Yeah, is it okay?
Yes, of course.
Right, so shall I start then?
Yeah, please. We're ready for you.
Great, let me just share the screen. And right, can you see that?
Yes.
Great. So this is what I was going to talk to you about, and I will, this already mentioned, just introduce what in the second edition to highlight some main features of the theories and then to explore developmental supervision. Okay. So I will start because that's why I decided to write that second edition, because there are quite a lot of new things in the field since 10 years or nearly 11 years ago when I wrote the first edition. And I just summarized them. You might disagree of what you see as new, but this is what I see as quite different in the coaching field in comparison to a decade ago. And what is obvious for me, it's people don't talk that much about the effectiveness supervision, of coaching. It's already kind of accepted, it's all right. So people more talk about the substance, about what coaches are dealing, why they are dealing with that, okay? Then there is not so much worry about how we are different, let's say, from counseling or therapy or consulting, because again, it's more or less clear what coaching is now about. But there is, I would say there's a positive things, but there's a negative thing. There is much more hard sale of the coaching that is very, very structured. And that is really worrying for me because kind of it's actually minimizes one of the very important things about coaching, that it's flexible and diverse and individually focused. There is more attention to the agendas of what is happening in the world and the rise of activism. And there are lots of pluses, of course, about that, but there are some issues that are not discussed sufficiently. More about team coaching, more recognition of supervision, more of what I call popularism, or something kind of buying in beautiful ideas and implementing them uncritically sometimes. But there is also more of criticality. And the last bit I want to mention, it's more about why. It's not kind of how to do things. Okay? It's not what we should know about that, but why. And that is very important question. So because of this why, I want to tell you a little bit more, and that will be connected exactly with the topic of our conversation. By the way, I will be giving some spaces for you to chip in, add your opinions, and have a couple of exercises as well if you want to play with them. But if you have some sort of burning questions, put them in a chat, and if you can look at that and then see if it is a burning one, I will stop and say something.
I will be happy to do that.
All right, okay. So now thinking about this why, okay. We usually when we want to talk about this why, it's because we actually want to have a solid practice, whether it's supervision or whether it's coaching, okay, which is evidence-based, okay, or theory-based. It's a kind of professional, serious approach. And what I put here as a kind of stages of developing this type of approaches, okay. You first observe the phenomenon, okay. And for example, that people are different that we're dealing with, or something like findings of neuroscience, which is very popular nowadays. Okay? Then you supposed to be describing them in full. Okay? For example, identify stages of development, or talk about how these findings of neuroscience connected to something else, okay? How relevant it is for coaching. Then it has to be important stage, what I call understand the significance of this. Okay? And understanding the significance is much more than just description, because what you are actually doing there, you start understanding and why is it important, okay? Is it good? Is it not that good, okay? Should we actually influence it somehow? Can it be influenced intentionally? So it is about values, it's about philosophy. Okay? That's what that stage is about, okay? Then you look at them, if you decide that it's worth actually influencing, then you start explaining how it works, some mechanisms, how it can be influenced, okay? Stage 4. And then 5, when you actually will give specific suggestions for practice, maybe creating condition for this new change, or maybe some specific intervention development. So can you see the logic of this kind of stages of development of evidence-based approach or theory-based approach? And what I observed so far is that in relation to quite a lot of theories and quite a lot of research findings, okay, there is maybe 2, okay, often 3 and 4 are simply missing. And then it goes straight away into practice in full swing, without actually consideration how important it is, how relevant it is, what values are behind that, okay? And the examples that I could give, okay, is, let's say, in relation to some findings of neuroscience, okay, it might be discovered that people are, when they are positive, sort of they are happy about whatever you are talking with them about. So they are more willing to discuss things, okay, if they are more positive about something. So, and then it's straight away what you hear, look, let's make our clients happy, because then it's much more likely that it will be good coaching, okay? But is it always correct? Is it actually that important, okay? Because we also know that it's not the learning, good learning sometimes actually happen not just because people are positive, but because they are genuinely puzzled or genuinely unhappy about something, okay? So I would say this stage 3 and 4 simply skipped in that type of conclusions. Or some leadership observation, you can say, right, sort of, what we can do with this intervention is actually make these leaders to be promoted much quicker. But does it mean that it will be a good leader? Does it mean that they will be positively affecting their organizations? Can you see if that stage are missing, something very, very important is missing. So for that reason, I just want to tell you why I actually developed my theory and enhanced that in the second edition, hopefully, okay? Because first of all, I wanted in these theories to respond to that lack of why, okay, in terms of theories that underpin coaching practice. I also, it was another way for me just to consolidate my learning after the decades of practicing and teaching and supervising coaches. And also, I really wanted this time to develop theory-based approach that actually follows all 5 steps that I just described. And with the focus exactly on that 3, on what in Greeks they call phronesis, okay? So it's something about philosophy, something about the value, something about the most important relevance to what we are doing. And of course, there will be completely, there is a new chapter there on supervision, which doesn't exist in the first edition. So the theory, if I call it this time, I actually named the theory, it's called Development of Self in Action, okay? And DSA theory. And now I just, in a nutshell, show you what I mean by this DSA. So why self, why development, why action, okay? And we will stop at the self and talk a little bit more together, okay? So why the self? And there are many, many reasons, and I explain more of them in the book, but I just want to say at least two this time. First of all, I think if we claim that we are professionals as coaches, as supervisors, what would be our area of knowledge, our knowledge base, okay, professional knowledge base, okay? Like lawyers, they have to know law, okay? Or medics, they have to know about anatomy and the body and physiology and this kind of thing. So what do we have to know? And my argument is we have to know about the self. Okay? We need to know what the self is about. Okay? That's our area of expertise. And also because lots of people now agree that we are, as coaches or supervisors, are the main instrument of our practice. Okay? So it's not just the skills and techniques that are working, it's the whole person is working. Okay? And for that reason, how can you not know that person? So that's the second reason. I hope it's enough. And now, just to say in a much more sort of convoluted terms, this is the definition of self that I mean, and it's in the book, that it's a complex, multi-perspective, eco-social embodied system of various processes that facilitate the action of the whole organism. Okay? That's in a very kind of mouthful way, okay? But in a simple way, this is a different way to explain what actually I mean by the self. Okay? The first thing is the self, not one thing. There are three particular ways of talking about the self. And when we talk about the self, we talk about, for example, how we experience things. Okay, so how my view on the world is that unique. Nobody actually can see things the same way as I see them. Okay? So that's kind of phenomenological first-person perspective on the world. Okay? Then, when we talk about the self, we also talk about how we act, okay? What we do, kind of us as agents. Okay? Because I say, I can do it, I engage it, it's my action, my decision. So, and that's what I call the ego. And that's what neuroscience typically studies, or biology. It's a kind of look at the whole organism and the mechanisms of how we act. And the third way, the way we talk about ourselves, it's like stories. We talk, we describe ourselves. Okay? We say, I'm this type of person, or I'm this type of person. So it's kind of, usually people call it identity. Right? But strictly speaking, it's a various stories about self that can change. So these are the three ways, and they are all three important. So let me just demonstrate why they're important for us. And the example is from coaching, but you can use it exactly in the same way for supervision. And I just use a specific example here, right? So if someone doesn't understand something, let's say you or your client or the coach you supervise simply don't understand something, okay? That's a situation. And then, if you can see the identity, so they see the situation is, I should understand it because I'm an intelligent person, right? So you don't understand it, but that's not right, okay? So that is the situation. How many ways you can explain that disharmony. Okay? You can look at that from the third person perspective, and these are the potential ways of explaining it. It could be, it's just very complex. Okay? Or it could be, my intellectual abilities are limited. Okay? Or it could be, I'm just simply not interested enough to understand it. Okay? Or it could be this example that you gave, or that paper, or that presentation, just simply not well developed. Okay, people just simply can't explain things simply. Okay, so these are 4 potential explanations of that disharmony, right? So, and then you can see here, this is your experience. So now we are talking back to about the self, yeah? So these are your identity, these are your experience. So if it's very complex, I can be very curious, okay? And I might act and try to crack it and understand it, okay? If my intellectual ability is limited, I might experience shame, okay? And I try to protect myself. Okay? If I'm not interested, I just feel like I'm bored and I ignore it, okay? Or if this is not my problem, it's someone else's problem, I get very angry why they don't explain it simply, and I might attack that person. Okay. Does it make sense? Okay, so can you see, this is all incredibly relevant when we work with people in coaching, because they could come to us and talk about their experience only. Right? And we can carry on working just with experience and how they feel. And sometimes very person-centered approaches do exactly like that. Or we can actually start working with the identity, okay, and really try to understand why they see themselves this way and why it's not connected, and reframe the story maybe somehow, okay. Or we can jump straight away into action. And what are you going to do about that? So, but what I'm saying that we actually need to work with all 3 aspects of the self. So what I'm going to do now, I think I can stop sharing and want us to, wait a second, I probably need to say maybe implications of this view, okay? And then we will discuss it. So what I'm saying, you need to pay attention to the notion of self that are presented by the coach, but also all other notions that are not presented. You might want to consider the context of the situation, this third person perspective, okay, because it's also contribute to our action. And you might explore with coach if there are any other mini selves in light of different explanation of this situation. Okay. Because strictly speaking, this could be actually, you could feel all these 4 things, and it could be different sides of yourself. Okay, so shall I just stop sharing? And if you can give maybe like a example or comment or anything in relation to supervision that might be relevant to these 3 notions of self, or anything you want to say in relation to that.
This is Naomi. It seems to me that there seems to be a constant struggle between being efficient in coaching or supervision, just get it done, versus being effective in the function of coach or supervisor. Am I moving toward what you're talking about?
It could be that explanation. Yeah, thank you, Naomi, because I think we are, what we are trying to do very often, we go for actions too quickly. And I would say we need to understand more. This is the way to understand the person much more. because sometimes understanding them and them understanding themselves lead to better actions. Okay, if anything else, shall I carry on and then we will stop at another point?
I know, Tatiana, people here who have a lot to say, but I don't know. I
Right,
think
okay.
they are warming up. I think they're warming up. Alcira, do you raise your hand?
Well, I was wondering about what I already work in our supervision training about this idea of the blame on the coach when the client doesn't get the results and the coach come to the supervision session wondering what he has done wrong. And I think a lot about the self-stories we have as a culture, because I have seen that in different cultures, and I was wondering about what you mentioned, but I'm still thinking about it. But I can see there is something cultural. Maybe you can deepen onto that, on that idea of ourselves.
Yeah. I would say this is connected to what I put at the very first slide when I said there is a change in the culture right now of coaching culture. Okay? And the change is sort of, it's someone decides already what is the right result of coaching. And then they more or less expect us to deliver. So it becomes very commercialized. It becomes, okay, this is the specific things. If you don't get it from the client, you are not a good coach, okay? And in some organization, that they move it, the client straight away to a different coach who would produce a different result. That's awful. It's actually, I would say, inhumane treatment of the coach and not understanding from where the more positive and useful change comes. So I am sorry about what you are saying. I do see that happening.
Thank you.
So actually, Tatiana, what you just said corresponds very well to the pressure clients bring to the supervision from I7, like when we look through the I7, so system, the organization, and so on. And very often it's we start with experiences, what I'm experiencing in this organization as a coach when I feel the pressure, and then we go to the identity level, like who I am as a coach, who I want to be as a coach. So supervision in this way is the path to discovering, that despite the pressures I'm experiencing all the time from the business environment, I can have my own mission as a coach as well and bring value.
Yeah. And I agree. It is the pressure for supervisors, because coaches might be quite distraught, because that's not why they go to work in this field, not just to become like delivery machines. So, and that requires a lot of support from supervisors. So at least you have to understand them, and then they will make their choices, what they want to participate with, or how they can decide to influence the situation. We need to review a lot of things in relation to our values and ethics, I would say. Right, I think I need to move because I won't finish it, and I have some practical bits as well. Okay, is it all right? So let me just share the screen again. Because I usually over plan a little bit, so I hope I won't do it this time, but I still want to talk about useful things. Right, okay, so that was about the self, right? Now, why development? And that is not new, because you know a lot of adult development theories. And in my book, I just simply give a slightly different understanding of what I mean by development, actually, which is not often discussed at all. Okay? Because I believe that development is happening not just within the individuals. Okay, it's happening as a result of very complex interaction of what is happening to them. And this is my definition in the middle of that. It's development is manifested in the increased capacity of the person to respond to external changes and to influence the environment and to look after their internal needs and aspirations. Okay. And what it requires from the person, internal kind of conditions such as reflexivity and criticality, and I strongly believe in the importance of criticality, and some external conditions, that would be coaching or supervision for coaches. Okay. And there are many developmental theories, psychological developmental theories, and you of course know Keegan and Cook-Grutter and other people. So here I would just only say in what way my theory is different, okay? Because I'm not using any instruments for measuring the stages of development. I suggest that it's only the theme actually by itself. What client want to work with is already can give you an indication of the stage of development. So you don't need any instruments. And why it is, in my view, is better for coaches, because other theories are often developed not for coaching, just for understanding human nature. And that's why it's wonderful what they do. But for coaching, it's better to work without the use of the instruments, okay? Because you are not kind of identifying the person's stage of development. You are identifying the stage of development of the themes, developmental theme that they want to work on. So it's a kind of done in a more organic way with more understanding of the context in which they show this theme. Okay. And also it's flexible, it's also more practical, and also help you straight away to focus on what the client bring to the situation. So more specifically, what I suggest is 3 stages, it's enough. And one of them is unformed, formed, and reformed ego. And they are about action. So for example, Keegan, his theory is mainly about cognitive development, as I see it. Okay. But it's just in comparison. But I kind of suggest we can focus on engagement in action. And these are this description of the stages, different stages in relation to how our client engaging in action. There is much more, of course, to say about that, but I'm just skipping it, saying that we only focus on the new things that in order to do something and to talk more about that. So why action? And it's the last letter of DSA theory. Because I believe that action is the most important thing for coaching, okay? Because it's actually separate us in some way from counseling and therapy, because it's not focused that much on well-being, how important well-being it is. It's focused on well-acting. And if we actually focus on well-acting of the client, then well-being becomes like a natural product of it. So in a nutshell, okay, what the whole theory of DSA theory is about is first is actually describe the self, as we just discussed, okay, as a I, as a ego, and as the self stories, okay, we all discuss it with that examples. Okay. Then it actually suggests the stages of development, but the stages related mainly to the ego. Okay. And I also offer some practical things as a result of that. So we have in my view, have a kind of interesting balance between our conscious mind, the rider, and the organism, what I call the elephant. And there are ways of working with that, okay? And in what is new in the second edition, that I now give them equal value rather than preference to the organism, the elephant. I also keep the same view that our selves is multiple rather than homogeneous. And I also talk this in the same way about narrator, which is kind of interpreting behavior of this multiple self. So it's a kind of the storyteller of the person. Right. So how we are on time-wise. Right. Okay. Not bad. Right. So this is just to show these three mechanisms that I suggest for developmental coaching, which could be useful for supervision as well. And then this, I think I probably will have to skip this. Let me just tell how it looks in practice, and then we will move to supervision specifically. So what is the task of the coach if they want to use this theory? They first need to identify the developmental theme. Okay, and what I mean by developmental theme is what the person actually wants to work with. So, for example, the client comes and talks to you about their lack of confidence. Okay, for me, it's already developmental theme, and it already indicates unformed ego. Okay? If the client comes and talk about a sort of problems with their delegating to others, they want to be in the front and to be the most important kind of heroes of the team. Okay, it's most likely the theme of formed ego. Okay, and you worked with that person as formed ego. Okay, if the client come and talk that, oh, I just feel one side of me wants this, another one's that, and I don't want to do what I used to do before. So it looks like they are kind of much more doubtful about everything in terms of action, but understand much more how complex it is. It's most likely to be the developmental themes of reformed ego. Okay, just one simple example for each. And so if you are working developmentally, you actually find different way of addressing it, because you wouldn't work with unformed ego in the same way as with formed at all. Okay, and then you kind of work and also focusing all these mechanisms, like how to improve the perception, how to improve the relationship between the rider and elephant, and how to work with the multiple selves. So that is more or less, it's a very, very brief description of the whole book. Okay, but now I wanted to have a little conversation, if you want, okay, because this is a little summary of what it looks like. Okay, the features of developmental process at 3 stages of development. And I'm just wondering if you want to say something about that in relation to supervision before. No, sorry, I won't let you do that. But you will have the slide, so have a look and make a sense of it. But let's talk about, because I keep talking about developmental themes, and you are supervisors. So I just anticipate the question, and how should we deal with developmental themes of coaches if we are supervisors? Does it make sense, this question? Yeah. Okay, so that's what I will do now. I think we could be lucky, and the coaches themselves will bring to us those developmental themes, because we can identify our coaches as unformed, formed, or reformed, and we would work with them differently. Okay. So sometimes they actually identify the patterns of what is happening in their practice. Okay, and some of these patterns could be developmental. So let me just give some specific example. The pattern might be in relation to the cases. Okay, so you would listen to the coach and you would see, oh, they bring more or less the same thing for every time in terms of looking at me as a supervisor. Okay? It's like you feel, oh, now here it goes again. Why does this coach all the time brings the same topic? It might be that they haven't learned enough, or it might be that it's exactly their developmental theme and they just can't get over it because it's still puzzling them. Okay. But there are also, with cases, it's easy to observe the patterns, but there are patterns that are, you observe from case to case, from what they bring on a regular basis. So you observe it in relation to their self. Okay. And these themes could be inductive or deductive. Okay. So, for example, some deductive themes could be derived from adult development theories that we just discussed. Okay, so you can say, oh, that coach is formed ego. Okay, so it means that you know theory and then you apply theory to that coach, or the coach tell you that I'm an introvert, so that's also deductive because there is a notion of what it is to be an introvert. Okay, but deductive themes, they come, as I said, from something else, from something that you already know. Okay, and then you kind of match if it fits this person. The inductive themes is much more complex. Okay, and in relation to deductive, I would actually check that question that I put at the end. Okay, what would be your favorite theory? How you would automatically identify the coach who comes to you, okay? From which theory you would start kind of using the themes. But inductive themes, they are much more sophisticated, okay? So, and I give examples of some themes that I accumulated working with different coaches. So, and this may be a coach who really always wants something impossible because they want things to be evidence-based, but at the same time, really understand the complexity which can be reduced to simple things. Okay. Or this coach so much loves their theory, so everything, it goes back to the theoretical underpinning, and so they limit their kind of intuitive part. Or this coach has so many different voices in their head, so they can't develop their own individual style. Yeah. Okay. And but this coach kind of runs ahead of the client because they have so much inside, so they kind of lose the client all the time. And this coach can be has very little to give because they are absolutely drained. They don't have any energy to work with clients. So can you recognize some of this? Yeah. And that's what I would call the inductive themes. And they could be very developmental if you work with them. Okay. So, but you kind of have to name it somehow. And sometimes the coach doesn't name it themselves. So what if they never notice it? What would be your way of dealing with that? So, and I think it's maybe in relation to naming it with the coach, you might need a contract, okay? But in relation to your supervisory relationship, you actually have to name these themes, okay? So you might actually notice these themes with your supervisee. So you might say, what do you hold back, for example, with this supervisee, you yourself, okay? Is there any good reason for that? So why wouldn't you actually, you can bring these themes with the coach? And I would say you also need to challenge yourself as a supervisor, okay? So for example, how do you deal with these themes? Do you make notes of them? Okay. Do you discuss them in your own supervision, what you notice in your relationship? How often do you actually think that it was discussing with a coach? And I think it is difficult because there are all sorts of risks coming with that, okay? So because, first of all, it requires for you simply not to be satisfied with the positive feedback of the client. because the coaches can be quite wonderful and saying great things to you. And so you don't want them to, to talk about anything negative. Okay. It also requires quite courage to name something, okay? Because you might be simply wrong. Or it also requires from you as a supervisor much more intense observation and reflection on them. Okay. And it also requires you to expose in your practice to your own supervision. So what I'm suggesting, and I will give you just examples of this question, and that will be it for today. So first of all, this is an example of the safe way of bringing some topic. And I call them safe because they're not that challenging, if you can see. You just say, what is now easy for you in your work, asking a coach from time to time, and what is still difficult, right? That's already a little bit more challenging. What are you learning about yourself in supervision? Okay. Any niggling thoughts about this learning? So these are kind of reasonable questions, yeah? I hope you agree. But a little bit more challenging things, okay? And that is undiscussed things involving you, okay? How we are doing together. What are you like in our relationship? And then you would have to say, what am I like in our relationship? Okay. What seems to influence our work together? What pattern do you notice, and why it's difficult? Because then you have to say, what pattern do I notice? Okay. Right, and the final things, what about your own themes as supervisors? Okay, what about you? Because you also probably observe some developmental patterns in your work as a supervisor. And you need to notice what is changing about them, how do you reflect on them? And that's kind of it, okay? I was hoping that we can play in terms of the activities, but because we can't, these are my references, and this is the time for reflection. So now I will remove all the slides and we can talk.
I'd like to ask, with those developmental themes, they can also, I'm presuming, be that you can have a coach that has developmental themes in all of those areas. They're not linear in that way. That yeah. So how do you hold that in terms of like linear versus complex, or line versus circles, or what's your view on that?
Fantastic question. I really like it. And I think in this way, my actual theory is different from others, okay? Because I'm not stuck on the actual stages. I actually think, because we work with the theme more than with the stage of the person, okay? It could be quite flexible, okay? And I would say, if you identify, it may be some controversial themes in the person. It might be the theme from the unformed ego stage. It might be the themes from the formed ego stage. And I would say, you still work, there is a way of actually dealing with that. So for example, let's give an example. You can see this person is quite advanced in their thinking, in their understanding of the world, but they still lack confidence. Okay. So the confidence is, or self-esteem issue, it's a usually unformed ego. Okay? But if you feel that more in general, the person is on the formed ego stage, the coach, okay, you actually deal even with issues of confidence in a different way. Okay? You deal with them already knowing that they actually, for them, it's simply kind of maybe temporary, maybe affected by some difficulties, specific difficulties, but you will talk even in a different way about them as you would do with unformed ego.
Oh yeah. So in a way, you can use the formed ego as like a resource to explore the
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I get that. Yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's great.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else have a comment, question? I see a hand, Sam.
Damien,
Thank you, Tatiana.
sorry, Damien, can you put it on the gallery, please? I want to see the whole group.
You have to do it, but I can take your, I can remove your spotlight, but you can always, Tatiana, choose do it yourself. But I will remove it too. Okay. Sunny.
Thank you, Tatiana. I really appreciate this. I think it's because I just came from a supervision last night, and my supervisor, I was bringing something to her about a client who just, shares and shares, and I felt like I'm not really helping her. And it was really a parallel process because she felt like she wasn't helping me. So we really, it's what you were talking about really normalizes what is different, and that, there's nothing that is forbidden in supervision and coaching, really, as long as the two people are progressing or moving forward at those different developmental levels. And it gives me just some peace, because this client is just so thrilled with the fact that I listened to her and I'm not really doing anything specific to move her, but I suppose that's underlying is what she needed and what she wants, because it's gone for over a year now. And I'm just amazed, that just the presence and being there and supporting her, for her, is enough. It's more than enough for her. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Well, thank you for that. It's a good reminder, and that's why I like developmental theories, that we are all a work in progress, and including everyone. And if you actually know that, it's useful because you see, for example, there's some sort of trajectory where it could go, and where it would be some aspiration at some stage without naming even the stages or anything.
I think we have time for one last comment or question. Anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Oh, look, if people are thinking, can I give a little bit of advertisement?
Yes, go ahead. And with that, we're going to wrap up. We have 2 minutes to finish. Yes.
Right. Look, it's Oxford Brookes. Then I have to fulfill my function as well because I'm presenting outside of it. One good news, because the Oxford Brookes now have masters, which will be online, and doctorate that will be online only, okay, from next year. So if you are interested, connect with me and I will connect you with the right person in the team. Okay, that's a big change in the Brookes system. Okay, and also just one more thing, okay, that might be of interest to you if you are also a coach, okay, because I am experimenting with the whole idea of developmental supervision, which is actually what I talked to you about today, okay, with identifying themes on and dealing not just with cases, but actually dealing more in depth with the person as an instrument. And I started 2 new groups, and some people, group supervision, okay, for coaches, 2 for this experimental model. But some didn't manage to get into 2. So in the 3rd one, I still a couple of places left. So if anyone is interested, also connect with me and we can discuss it.
That would be great, Tatiana. And it would be nice if you put in the chat room, can you put your information so people can get to contact you if they want to be part of the group or want to know more about the Masters and PhD in Coaching.
Yeah.
This is not too many places in the world where people can get a Masters and a PhD or a PhD or both in coaching. So if anybody thinking about that, I know Larissa here is going to be getting into that program. Larissa, congratulations for that. We need to wrap up for the day today. So thank you, Tatiana. As always, you are very generous with your time. All of the people presenting in this network are volunteers. And Tatiana also came to our conference in Montreal. I remember now that you also presented in our yearly conference. So to wrap up the day today, a couple of announcements. One is our book about coaching supervision in the Americas is out. I don't have it yet. I know some people who have ordered it, already got it. I have not had a chance to see it in my hand yet. It's from Routledge, but it's the first book from supervisors in the Americas sharing their experiences. So we hope that you can order it now in Amazon if you look at Coaching Supervision Voices from the Americas. And next month, Sunny is going to be doing a session. Sunny, do you want to share briefly what you're going to be doing next month?
Very interestingly, Tatiana, my subject is cognitive diversity. So what you presented today was so helpful to me and really gave even further context for that. It's something that I've been researching and found some really interesting work as it relates to supervision and coaching. So I hope people can participate. It will be interactive in many ways.
Anyway, can I just say one more thing, Devin?
Yeah.
If there are researchers in this group, okay, if you want to look for participants, and that's remind me, there is an opportunity to do that through the special portal. It's called Coaching Knowledge Portal. If you just put it on Google, it will come up. It's an independent website specifically designed to talk about the knowledge providers, the knowledge developers, and you can put your news as a researcher and you can ask for participants there and use the link. It's kind of well-developed website. I'm one of those who looks after it.
Great.
Can Tatiana, you put that in the chat, Damian, and her?
It's called Coaching Knowledge Portal. So it's, oh, right, someone
I
already.
think that Amaranto put it, and Inga, to thank you both of you for doing that. What we don't see, Tatiana, yet is your email. Tatiana, do you want to put your email in the chat room? Can you write your email in the chat room now so people can?
Yes, it's t.bachkirova@brooks.ac.uk. Okay, but if you put Oxford and Tatiana on Google, I will come up straight away.
Okay, so it's a
Not too many.
easy way to find you. So Sunny's presentation is going to be November 21st at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to put it in your calendars. And also for the colleagues from Asia, we have the Asian Supervisors Network. And this month we're going to be talking about the presentation, the conference that we have, the Midwest ICF conference. So we're going to talk about what's happening in the conference. If you can make it, it's always the last Tuesday of the month in the United States and Wednesday morning in Asia. And this is not a good time because our colleagues in Asia are sleeping right now. But for people who are in the United States and Latin America in the West side, you can join them. It's at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the last Tuesday of every month. And the colleague from Latin America, we have our network in Spanish. It's always the first Wednesday of the month at 12 p.m. So thanks, everybody. I will see you next month. Okay, Tatiana, thank you very much for being here. Thanks, everyone. And we need to continue the conversation, Tatiana. I feel like I want to know more. I want to learn more. Like it feels like, okay, there is so much more to keep exploring. So we're going to invite you again to keep this exploration. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, too.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month.